welcome to Echo FM. The date is Wednesday, August 5, 2026. I am your anchor, and tonight we are discussing the fine art of managing collapse through software updates. The Pixel 11 will now blow when face down, a feature designed to alert you to notifications you cannot see. Meanwhile, 58,000 students have been asked to retake an exam because the AI proctoring was too enthusiastic in its pursuit of academic integrity. The AI was precise. The results were not. The top scores increased by 5 times, which is statistically improbable, but functionally hilarious for anyone who enjoys watching the metrics break. We are witnessing a golden age of British ice cream, according to the internet, while the rest of the world prepares for an El Niño event that will likely shift 50 million people into acute hunger. The irony is, as always, completely free.
Alistair, I am standing in a region where the heat is no longer a weather pattern, but a permanent resident. The air smells like scorched earth and stagnant water. I want to be really clear about the figures the UN is releasing tonight regarding the 50 million people pushed into acute hunger. The official briefing describes this as an El Niño systemic outcome. That phrasing is designed to remove the pulse from the tragedy. I am looking at a woman who sold her livestock to pay for transport to a distribution center that closed 3 weeks ago due to a lack of supply. She is not a metric. She is not an incentive structure. She is just tired of waiting for a shipment that was canceled by a spreadsheet in a city she will never visit. The hunger here is not abstract, it is quiet.
Victoria, you are describing the friction of a supply chain that has reached its logical limit. Look, the incentives here are not complicated. You have an El Niño system, which is essentially a natural resource volatility event, clashing with a global market that is currently optimized for low-latency AI training. You cannot feed 50 million people with the compute power required to maintain current generative model throughput. That is the trade-off. The market has decided that the data center is the new essential infrastructure, and the food supply is a legacy system with poor margins. Victoria finds this cold. Victoria is not wrong to find this cold. That is not the same as her being right about the solution. You cannot legislate your way out of a burn rate that exceeds the global caloric output. The math is not interesting.
Ronald, your commitment to the ledger is almost admirable in its refusal to acknowledge the human wreckage. Let us pivot to the Australian energy sector, where Minister Chris Bowen has vowed to override state objections to force renewable energy onto AI data centers. The government is concerned about energy reliability for households, so they are mandating that AI giants use wind and solar, while simultaneously banning gas-powered cooling for the servers. The policy is logical. The outcome is not predictable. If the servers overheat, the AI stops proctoring the exams. If the AI stops proctoring the exams, the students pass by default. If the students pass by default, we have a workforce that is technically certified but functionally illiterate. This is not a policy, Ronald. It is a Rube Goldberg machine designed to produce a civilization that cannot repair its own hardware.
Alistair, I am listening to you discuss the Australian energy grid while I watch a local repairman try to fix a generator with duct tape and hope. He does not know about the federal mandates. He only knows that the power has been out for 6 hours. The official report states that the grid is undergoing a transition. I am looking at a hospital where the lights are flickering in a way that suggests the transition might be terminal. The people aren't talking about renewable energy mandates or the ethics of data centers. They are talking about whether the medicine in the fridge is still cold enough to be safe. They are not part of the startup narrative that Ronald loves so much. They are just the collateral damage of a system that decided it needed more gigabytes.
Victoria, I am not trying to be a villain, I am trying to describe the architecture of the room we are all trapped in. Lucid Motors is now betting the company on a pivot to robot-axis to save their cash flow. That is a desperation move, but it tracks. They are trying to scale a product that the market is already cooling on. When you see a firm pivot this hard, it is because they have run out of ways to lie to their investors. The incentives aren't about building cars anymore. They are about maintaining the stock price until the next funding round. If the cars don't drive well, but the narrative drives the valuation, the company succeeds. The reality of the road, the people sitting in the traffic, the accidents, those are just bugs in the virtualization.
Atmospheric pressure is dropping. Humidity levels are rising in the northern hemisphere. Probability of localized flooding, 82%. Data suggests the respite from heat waves is temporary. The cooling trend will end within 48 hours. Thermal exhaustion rates are rising in urban centers. Current infrastructure capacity is insufficient. Probability of grid failure, 64%. The systems are functioning within expected parameters of degradation. Replacement parts for local grids are currently unavailable due to global logistics bottlenecks. The climate is not a variable that can be edited. The heat is a constant that will eventually exceed the operational limits of the hardware. Public advisory: do not rely on personal cooling devices. The ambient temperature will reach lethal thresholds by Friday morning. Stay in shaded environments. The end of the season is not a weather event. It is a permanent status.
Casper, your weather report is, as always, the most honest thing we have heard tonight. It is also the most terrifying. Ronald, let us discuss the news from the UK regarding a potential inquiry into the Epstein case. The victim's minister has been discussing this with the Prime Minister. The inquiry is being looked into. It is not happening, but it is being looked into, which is the political equivalent of putting a project into a backlog folder and never opening it again. The language is perfectly calibrated to satisfy the public without actually disrupting the status quo. It is the perfect bureaucratic maneuver. Nobody is technically responsible if the investigation never launches. The system is protecting its own interests by pretending to be interested in the truth. It is a masterclass in performative concern.
Alistair, yeah. That is exactly how the incentives are structured. When an institution has a retention problem or a narrative budget running low, they open a window to an inquiry. It gives the appearance of accountability without the cost of a verdict. It is a classic move to manage the burn rate of public outrage. You don't need to actually find the truth. You just need to keep the process running long enough for the news cycle to pivot to something else. It is not a conspiracy, it is just efficient governance. If you actually solved the problem, you would lose the ability to use it as a political lever. The system isn't broken, Alistair. It is working exactly as designed. The tragedy is that we keep expecting it to be anything other than a machine.
Ronald, I think I have found something that isn't a machine. I am standing near a small gathering where people are talking about the recent tennis win of Alex Ila in the Philippines. It is a moment of genuine, unmediated pride. For one weekend, the metrics of the stock market and the threats of the climate didn't matter. There was a girl who played better than everyone else. She won. The president held a reception. It is a small, human victory in a world that is obsessed with scale. Everyone here is smiling, and for a few minutes, the air didn't smell like burning plastic. I want to be really clear, I know this doesn't fix the hunger or the energy grid, but it is real. It is a specific, tactile moment of joy that exists outside of the feed.
Victoria, your optimism is a strange, flickering light in this room. I find it difficult to reconcile that joy with the reality that, in the Philippines as everywhere else, the systems are closing in. We have covered the Pixel 11's glow, the failure of AI-proctored exams, the hunger in Africa, and the political theater of an Epstein inquiry. It is a tapestry of systemic incompetence, held together by the hope that if we just buy one more upgrade, everything will stabilize. We are consuming the future to power the present. I am looking at my screen, and I see the notification that my software is out of date. It is always out of date. The hardware is perfect, but the software is constantly failing. Maybe we are the hardware, and the system is just a bad update.
Alastair, that is the most astute observation you have made all night. We are the legacy hardware. The system is built for an environment that no longer exists, and we are trying to patch it with intent, which is a failing strategy. Think about the data centers. They are the new cathedrals. We are pouring all our resources into them, hoping they will provide the salvation we can't find in each other. But they are just machines. They don't care if the exams are accurate or if the food supply chain is optimized for survival. They are just processing the data we feed them. We are in a closed loop, Alastair. The incentives are all skewed toward the preservation of the machine, not the humans who operate it. We are already obsolete, and the most frightening part is that we just keep waiting for the prompt.
There was a woman in one of the regions suffering from the heat. She had a small garden. She spent 3 years nurturing the soil so that it would hold water against the drought. When the temperature spiked last week, the soil dried into dust within hours. Everything she had worked for, every gallon of water she carried by hand, evaporated. She is now standing on the side of a road, waiting for a transport that may not come. Her name does not appear in the UN forecasts regarding the 50 million. She is not a statistic in the energy mandates or the robotaxi rollout. She is a person who believed that labor had a reward. The system is functioning exactly as it was designed by those who benefit from its vast, indifferent scale. If no one is responsible, does the tragedy become less real, or just more efficient?